Welcome back to Planet with Pisces. I'm Leslie. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most kept fish in the hobby, but also the most improperly kept fish in the hobby. Join me as we go over the how-tos to properly keep the pet goldfish. The goldfish that we have today may not look anything like their wild carp ancestors, but through years of breeding for certain traits, we sure have some interesting ones to choose from. Let's first start with some examples of single-tailed goldfish. The most common ones include the comet, the shubunkin, and the common goldfish. Next, let's go over some examples of double-tailed goldfish. Some of these include orandas, rukin, fantail, ranchu, telescope eye, bubble eye, and veiltail. Now there's some major differences between single-tail and double-tail goldfish. Let's start with single-tail. Single-tails are very active, very large fish. They're best suited for ponds. However, if you are going to keep them in an aquarium, I do recommend 40 gallons per fish. Now fancy goldfish, or double-tail goldfish, are not as athletic, have smaller bodies growing around 8 inches in length. I recommend at least 20 gallons per fish. Now we've already talked a little bit about tank size. These fish can grow fairly large, and I don't ever recommend putting them in a bowl. A bowl is just not suited for their needs. These fish are very dirty and need a lot of filtration. Goldfish need a lot of oxygen. So making sure that they have a large enough tank with a big surface area will help oxygenate your water. You can also add an aeration stone for not only aesthetic looks, it will add more oxygen to your water. Temperature is also really important to the goldfish. Not only does it help it regulate its body functions, but it also will help it with oxygen levels. Optimal range for these guys is going to be 65 to 72. Cold water fish do not like to be too warm, and then dropping their temperature too low can actually cause problems as well. Because they are such dirty fish, they'll need a lot of maintenance on their tank, which means you'll need to be testing their water in order to know where their nitrate levels are. With this tank here, I have 2 small goldfish in a 29 gallon. I do about a 50% water change once a week. That keeps my nitrates between 10 and 20 parts per million, which I believe is perfect for my planted tank. If you do not have live plants in your tank, I would recommend keeping that nitrate level even lower. Now, feeding will also determine your water quality as well. Of course, if you have more fish in your tank or you're feeding more food to them, it's going to dirty your water faster. So just make sure that you're always testing your water to make sure that it's at the optimal range that you want it at. pH is also very important to them. Goldfish like a high pH range of about 7 to 8. Now goldfish are omnivores, which means they eat protein sources and vegetation matter. It's very important to give them vegetation because they have a tendency to get constipated. Now, some people do feedings in a few different ways. For younger goldfish, I always recommend to feed them multiple times a day. I do my fish twice a day and feed them a variety of food. Giving them a variety of food will help make sure they're getting all the essential things that they need, and it'll also keep it interesting, as well as making sure that you're giving them the protein with vegetation. I do 2 feedings a day for my goldfish. So in one feeding, I'll do a high protein source, and in the next feeding, I'll do a vegetation source. Some people do this on a daily basis, doing a vegetation one day, a protein the next day. But the reason why I like this is because I can actually watch and see if their food is passing through them. High protein foods are going to be brown in color, where high vegetation foods are going to be green in color. So depending on the color of the poop, I can kind of watch and see to make sure that my goldfish are passing the food that I'm feeding them, and I don't need to add anything extra to their diet. Let's talk about some good foods. So the first area that I'm going to talk about is the live, frozen, or freeze-dried foods. My favorite of this category is actually brine shrimp. Brine shrimp are a great protein source for goldfish. They also, because of their exoskeleton, have good roughage. Roughage is something that will actually help pass things through the intestines of your goldfish. You can also give them bloodworms, Daphnia Tubifex worms, and even snails, pest snails. The next category we'll talk about is vegetation. Some people like to feed their goldfish duckweed. You can also give them some vegetables, leafy greens like kale, spinach, lettuces, even cucumber. You can also give them algae wafers and seaweed. One of my favorite vegetation matters to give them is actually peas. I like to boil my peas to get them a little bit softer, and then I let them cool. I take off the skin and kind of smush up or cut up the inside of the pea for the fish. That way it's easier for them to eat and it's not as much of a choking hazard. Next, let's talk about manufactured foods. So these are foods like pellets, flakes, and wafers, things like that. You want to make sure that these are high quality foods. High quality foods have less fillers and more nutrients, so you don't have to feed as much. And second, they're not going to produce as much waste in your tank. Some of my favorite brands for this are Bug Bites, Sarah, Hikari, Rapashi, New Life Spectrum, and Omega 1. Now make sure that you guys are giving a wide variety of foods. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Give them variety. Now there are other cold water fish that could be potential tank mates for your goldfish, but we're not going to go over that right now because then it gets into other issues that you could come across. So we're going to just say goldfish should be in tanks with other goldfish. Now keeping goldfish in a planted tank is sometimes a little bit difficult, especially if they're very large goldfish. My goldfish are still small, and I do have a couple plants in here that have been highly recommended by people who keep goldfish and have been keeping goldfish for a long time. But there are some that I am trying out in this tank. So we're gonna go over some of the recommended ones, but feel free to try out different things. Just know that your goldfish may try to eat it, may try to pull it up, and may even try to dig it up by playing in the gravel below as they're searching for food. These plants either are attached to something, whether you glue it or tie it to a rock, a piece of wood, a decoration, or like the Marimo moss balls, they just sit on the bottom and the goldfish can pick at them and kind of kick them around and play with them, and it's not going to hurt your Marimo moss ball. It's actually going to help it. If your goldfish don't touch your Marimo moss balls, then I would suggest you at least kick them around once a week when you do their water changes. That way they don't turn brown on one side and stay green on the other, and you'll get a nice full green ball. Now, if you are going to try other plants like stem plants, I have some Augustifolia in my tank. This tank has a lot of river rock in it, so I actually decided that I was going to plant the Augustifolia in between the rocks, kind of sandwiching them in there so they're harder to pull up and the goldfish can't get into the gravel that holds them in as well to be able to dig them up. I don't really care if they eat the leaves off of this plant. It is a very fast growing plant, so even if I chop the top off, it's going to sprout back up in a week and will be just fine. I also have added a banana plant because it's cute. And banana plants are pretty cool because they actually will sprout lily pads. So you can see with my plant here, These little streams that go up to the top actually have little lily pads on the surface of their water, which creates cover for the fish, which may help them feel safer and not as stressed in the tank. Now, when planting a goldfish tank, make sure that you're leaving plenty of swimming room. You don't want to overcrowd your tank with plants. These fish love to swim and explore, and make sure that you're giving them that opportunity to do so. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I upload my next videos. We'll see you later, guys. Oh, she's so cute. Need you guys' help naming this one. Alright, my cat wants to get in on this. Hey, midget.